So is that still recording?
Yes.
Okay. So welcome everybody. This is our first experiment at forming what I was calling a New Earth Council, but this can be whatever it needs to be. So I'm going to read once more what I sent in an email just to make sure that those ideas are fresh in our head. And then I have a short statement to make on the context of what I feel we're doing. And then after I go over the context, then we can discuss some of the broader ideas of what it is we can be doing as a group. And I'm sure as I describe these things, we could talk for hours about some of these ideas, and I'm totally fine with, if you want to share something while I'm talking, interrupt me, and that's fine. Just know that it's going on a video. I think I prefer the group discussion format. I'm not much of a speaker, lecturer type kind of person, so I like having breaks when other people share their ideas too, and I also like feedback of knowing that what I'm saying makes sense or connects with what you're thinking too. So I'm not a typical kind of group leader where I just want to do all the talking. I'm absolutely not like that. I'm assuming most group leaders aren't either. It's easier sometimes with certain crowds to make sure that you know how it's going. But this crowd, we've got some really smart people together here, and I want to hear other people's opinions on some of this. So the email that I sent started out with the idea, over time I would like to learn more about your needs and challenges relating to operating effectively in our current society where many new concepts are often dismissed or misunderstood. I'm interested in meeting together to find out what we can do together that we could not do separately to bring in the New Earth consciousness faster and more smoothly. I'm interested in discussing ways to bring greater unity across all other New Earth-focused groups through networking, shared education resources, and information tools, and anything else we can think of. As the Earth's transition could lead to unexpected bumps in the road, the divisiveness of the election cycle being a possible example, I'm interested in making sure we can support our community all as one through any confusing and catalytic events. I would like the unseen spiritual hierarchies that guide us already and have led us to know each other to have more of a representative presence within the visible Earth plane in the form of a decision-making or thought-joining collective. And I said more specifically, I would like to meet for this. And I also said I created a website to help support this, and the website address is now newearth.network. So I'm calling it the New Earth Network, and the New Earth Network can support the New Earth councils that I would like to suggest people form. That we have many types of groups, they can form for many purposes, but I would like there to be some type of central group which can encourage unity amongst other like-minded groups through specifically contacting the leaders of those groups and other people who are highly connected, and making sure that we have our own network and that we're all somewhat on the same page, and that we understand what others' beliefs are, and we understand if something crazy did happen, we would at least have some sense of who to call and not get caught up in our belief systems. We could actually already know each other well enough to actually benefit from meeting and discussing how the New Earth energies are actually manifesting on Earth through all these changes that will probably be happening eventually. So maybe I should do the introduction segment before I begin my little notes I had prepared on context. So my name is Mike Wiskoski, and I started a group called the ET Disclosure Group in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I've been doing that for almost a year and a half now with some others. And I've been making more connections through meeting people there and in other meetup groups. And since I'm a programmer, I decided to kind of expand my horizons a little bit and start a project which could support more of these New Earth-oriented communities. I'm trying to shift the New Age concept over to New Earth because New Age is such a controversial concept, and it's almost just like a miscellaneous category. Everyone who's outside the box automatically called New Age or something like that. So we want to say, okay, we're specifically the people focused on New Earth, and it goes straight back to Christianity, the new heaven and the new earth. We want that idea that we can all share, that we're ushering in a new era of bringing heaven to earth through this new earth, and all the energy and love and everything that goes with that. So we can go around clockwise, and we can share other things that, what you're involved in too.
My name is Rebecca Tilley, and I just opened, along with Elisha, a Spiritual Spiral Awakening Center. Also in the past, I have had meetup groups with the Oneness Spiritual Health Club, and so our goal is to be of service to people in our community by helping them on their journey wherever they are on their path. And so we provide different groups that come together to discuss ideas, to live an inspired life, to awaken or reawaken or remember, also to share different modalities of healing and of being in this world. So that's basically what we're doing. So we're pretty, one of our mottos is kind of just be open at the top and let a lot of different ideas flow to you and see what feels good for you. So be open-minded enough to just let it in and then decide what feels right for you.
My name is Alicia Patton, and I was really turned on to this, what we now call Spiritual Spiral Awakening Center. Everywhere I looked, there was a spiral. The spiral followed me, and finally, after 4 months, I decided I needed to do something. I am a 50-year tarot card reader. I have been doing tarot card readings for over 50 years now. And to me, it's very important that people understand that it's not just a now happening. It's very ancient, and we need to respect it. And that's really my biggest thing that I want to get across to people. Use this as a tool. It is magic, and we're all magic.
You guys can go together or whatever.
We're Roger and Susan. More or less, my part of it is I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. Refuse to grow up, but that's beside the point. We've basically, we've gone through all kinds of different tools that we found from friends and other people we have met throughout this time in our lives, and we do Reiki, general energy healing. Susan does tuning forks, and I'll let her talk more about her things. But we have, again, lots of tools that we found throughout different parts of the United States. The energy vortex being one of them. Life technology rings created by Slum Sperling is another one that we use. And we love using essential oils.
Lots of rocks.
Oh, yeah.
Rocks.
Yeah, we have a few of those.
But we work together when we can on healing, because we both bring different aspects, as everyone has different contributions. So we're able to integrate those seamlessly. But my main focus is the tuning forks. I'm also a licensed psychotherapist, so that has helped so much in this work because I can respond to situations. And I'm doing intuitive jewelry as well.
Excellent. Richard is my partner in crime with the ET group. Did you want to share anything, Richard?
I don't have much to say, really.
And Ken's very shy, but he helped inspire me to do this too. He's got a ridiculous amount to share, but I don't know if he wants to.
Well, I'm really not sure what to say. I guess I kind of consider myself just a spiritual or metaphysical seeker, searcher, journeyer, open to all possibilities.
And through synchronicity, you seem to be connecting a lot of people in the community.
It's got some pretty good guidance and prompts to do that.
Yeah.
So, feel honored to do that also. Wonderful people.
Thanks. You want to share anything, Brittany?
I'm Brittany, and I'm also part of the ET group, and I'm a spiritual journeyman as well, I guess. So, yeah, I guess that's how I would define myself here.
Okay. All right. Back to Richard. All right. So this morning I had a bunch of stuff coming to me like I should share this. It's a combination of thoughts that I've had over the last few months that I feel are important to have on film. So the key point that I want to express right now is that the whole earth is shifting, and that involves all belief systems in some form or another, I would suggest. And I think we have historical examples of how belief systems transform rather than switch. And so I think, let's say somebody's converting to a religion, there might be a lot of specific details, specific people, concepts, changes that happen when a religion starts, a new belief system comes about, but there's always a philosophy that's behind the specifics, and the philosophy is a slower change that happens. It doesn't just immediately switch. When your core way of communicating with people doesn't immediately switch when you switch your belief system. It has to be a transformation of kind of conscious energy with yourself, with your community. So I would suggest that it's the philosophies that surround religions and behavior, which is what the religion is really helpful for, that has to start somewhere where people are currently at and then be transformed. It's not like a light switch when you convert a religion. It's a personal transformation over time. And I think this is missed a lot of times when people think about other belief systems. When you think about Christianity, really that was Judaism, and Jesus came along and he tried to transmute Judaism through saying, you don't have to do animal sacrifices. I am the final sacrifice. Well, it was really Paul who said Jesus is the final sacrifice. But this religion formed out of a transformation of the philosophies of Judaism. And you can even take that a step further and say Martin Luther transformed the philosophies of Catholicism, and he created this through the Reformation, more of a Protestant thinking, which has a little bit more idea of individual sovereignty. It's not just the big church on the hill. It's me and my church just reading the Bible and seeing what it says, and seeing what Jesus was really teaching, and not needing the pitfall aspect of a religion, which would have been the organizational structures of Catholicism. And in the raw material, there's some emphasis on the fact that Muhammad actually brought many people into what was said to be a more intelligible kind of philosophy for relationships and dealing with others. So the word intelligible is another word I would say is like coherent. It's like you have all these diverse, sometimes superstitious, sometimes just guesswork, all these different belief systems that are existing just out of necessity because people want to know what's really going on. They form their own belief system just based on the best stuff they have. And then when a religion has come along in the past, it kind of brings a greater coherency that allows people to say, oh yes, it's because of this, it's because of God that I choose to serve others and love others. And it's this greater, it's like a direction of consciousness as people go from a less coherent thought to a more coherent kind of philosophy. And the Baha'i faith is another example where a lot of Muslims are now reaching out towards the Baha'i faith because even Wikipedia says Baha'i faith emphasizes the spiritual unity of all humankind. And I was first exposed to this by Stephen Greer. He said he was Baha'i. And when I looked it up, it's like, wow, this is pretty cool that there's this religion where, all these spiritual teachers are seen on the same plane, and the oneness of all mankind is appreciated. And it hasn't taken hold so much in the West, but in the East, the Baha'i faith is kind of a transformation or a natural outspring out of Islam to a large degree. I don't know exactly how big it is. I'm no expert on religion either. I'm just kind of throwing together bits and pieces of what I know. But another aspect of the transformation of thinking is we have had a giant shift in this country from Christianity, not to a new form of Christianity, but a lot of people just rebel and they become atheists. And I think that's important to acknowledge, that we have a kind of a rationalism or mainstream scientific worldview. It's not necessarily like atheism is connected to scientific concepts, but people who are atheists prefer to say that science has their faith. So I think that there's really a separate kind of faith that is that was valuable through many generations. People realizing they can study things and question themselves, question their beliefs about the world through using a formulaic system to study things, and that was a significant step in the evolution of humankind. But there is a problem with it, in a pitfall there, which is that people place a lot of faith now in philosophies like reductionism, to a certain extent materialism, to a certain extent determinism. They have a lot of faith in these things, and they use a kind of religious fervor to support their unwillingness to say that mysterious and supernatural things could even exist. They're very opposed to even investigating things with the same religious fervor that any other fundamentalist religious person would be. So I found a good article called "The Anti-Sheldrake Phenomenon." It was an article written by a guy named Ted Dace, and he says, "At the heart of reductionism is the confusion of assumption with fact." He says biologists assume that they have physics on their side, but physics isn't so sure. According to Gabor Forgax and Stuart Newman, the recognition that organisms cannot disobey physics is of limited value in explaining their behavior. In their textbook Biological Physics of the Developing Embryo, Forgax and Newman explained that while physics operates by reducing complex systems to simple components, in organisms, complexity is a fundamental and irreducible property. So there is this assumption that science will always have the answer. We just haven't gotten there yet. Science will lead us to the truth if we just pursue and reduce and study more and more and more. It's the same way with DNA. They think that they can just study DNA to get to the truth about why we are the way we are, why consciousness is the way it is, how the brain can result in consciousness if we just understand the building blocks. But the evidence has pointed so far in the contrary at this point that it requires a kind of religious faith and fervor in order to oppose the science, such as what Rupert Sheldrake has brought forth. Rupert Sheldrake has done more work than almost anyone in showing how silly science is by showing how much of this type of extrasensory perception or morphogenic fields seem to be shaping our development and our minds and communication systems. And another good example was the PAIR laboratory, Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Laboratory. They did a lot of work for decades at Princeton showing how our consciousness has an effect on systems, mechanical systems, and they shield off every single kind of physical, known physical phenomenon, so they could potentially persuade skeptics, but skeptics aren't even willing to look at the data because of, as again I said, this religious fervor. So it's not that there's something wrong with the scientific approach, it's that people place too much faith in reductionism, materialism, and determinism, and that also needs to evolve. So there is a direction. All these religions, I would suggest, have taken a path, and they're continuing that path, going in a particular direction. And science has to open up to the evidence of noetic science and spiritual related science. Christianity has a direction, and I would like to just talk a little bit about the direction because Christianity is such a big deal. I've noticed, well, let me give a little story. I did a website for a seminary back in 2007 called the Westminster Theological Seminary, and there was a professor there who wrote this book, Inspiration and Incarnation. His name is Peter Enns, And he was fired from the seminary for writing this book around the same time that at the exact same time I was working and was hired to work on their website monthly. And they started getting less donations, and they attributed that to Peter Enns in this book. And so my path and his path were somewhat intertwined in that moment, and I had to figure out what he's up to. And he was basically just saying that we can still have Christianity even though there's the appearance of contradictions and problems with the Bible that the theologians have to wrestle with. And some people just go in the direction of saying, okay, I can't believe it. Whatever you say about the Bible, you must be wrong. But the weight of the evidence that the Bible isn't 100% consistent on itself doesn't mean that there's something wrong. It means that there's different people with different points of view who are different authors of different books, and they don't always say the same things, and that's okay. But Peter Enns has written some great books. He wrote a book called The Bible Tells Me So, Why Defending Scripture Has Made Us Unable to Read It. He wrote a book called The Sin of Certainty, Why God Desires Our Trust More Than Our Correct Beliefs. And even if you just think about that phrase, the sin of certainty, it kind of reveals the problems that Christianity has encountered, which is that people have placed so much faith in their own certainty and their own knowing that they've missed the fact that pride is a sin, that pride connects to certainty, and the certainty that they are right about their dogma has created a huge stumbling block for Christianity to be able to open up to new ideas and new information, because people just assume that whatever they currently believe is what there is to believe, and there's nothing more, and that's just a recipe for a lot of headaches and heartaches. So there's another great book, far more popular than Peter Enns' book, which is called Love Wins by Rob Bell. And this book really created a stir. I don't know, has anybody else heard of this book, Love Wins by Rob Bell?
Yeah.
So Rob Bell was one of a very good, high-selling, best-selling author, a Christian author. And when he wrote this book, people just turned on him. A lot of people turned on him, but a lot of people just created a movement which is associated with the ideas that maybe we've been misled about what Jesus was talking about when he used the word Gehenna, which is what was translated to hell. And if you really do all the research, now there are contrary arguments. There are so many people who try to take everything in the Bible literally. There are many ways to argue about it. But I think when you take the whole thing that Jesus was doing and saying into account, it looks very much like he's talking about hell as representing a kind of purification, a kind of karma that people will inevitably go through. And this is a kind of movement that I think more Christians need to recognize. You can't just brush it aside, that the dogma of Christianity is not necessarily based on the Bible, and it's based more on people's certainty and culture. So I think that there is a movement, and some people call it postmodern Christianity, some people call it progressive Christianity, this movement away from the old kind of thinking about the fundamentals of Christianity. But I would like to point out some other issues that can arise with that direction, because some people would tend to prefer to see religion as just another kind of psychology tool, to say that the mystical isn't really important. We can ignore the miracles, the magical side of Jesus. If they feel that science has somehow proven the Bible wrong, they feel that maybe we don't have to have as much reverence. But I think that's the greatest potential pitfall is that people might lose their reverence in the divine source. And it seems as though the more traditional faiths seem to have a greater sense of reverence. And the newer faiths, people seem to be more like, okay, let's just hang out. And that's cool. It's good to just hang out and talk about faith. But we lose so much if we miss out on the value of reverence and taking very seriously what we're involved in, which is very profound. I was in tears many times today thinking about this because I really think that if we put more focus on reverence than just about anything, we could really have a very clear path laid out for us for receiving higher guidance and connecting with others. I think that there's a strong tendency towards wanting to claim sovereignty, and that's very important too. And I think that we have to kind of learn to balance the desire to be sovereign and the proper, healthy understanding that reverence is the only proper perspective in what we found ourselves in, where we're in this giant game. It is just a game, and like we're like players on a stage, or the raw material calls it a great experiment, or Corey Good says the ETs think of it as a grand experiment, that we're in this kind of situation where you can try out things and see how it goes. But ultimately, we have to recognize that we're part of something bigger, and a lot of us came here for specific reasons. And if we just go off and do our own thing and don't recognize that we came here for a specific reason, to work with certain people for certain reasons, then we miss out on having the right attitude, which I would suggest is an attitude of reverence. Now, I would suggest that love is the foundation of a new earth. Love is what we're moving into, the fourth density consciousness. It's all about love and forgiveness and making that the basis for what we do. But I would suggest reverence is the guiding compass. And I thought it was kind of funny in the Thrive movie, Foster Gamble saying the Taurus is the guiding compass. And I thought so many people are going to have no idea what that could possibly mean. But if you think about it, the Taurus is kind of coming back in on itself all the time. As you move outward, you have to go back inward. No matter which direction you're going in, you have to come back inward. In the geometry of the compass, the Taurus. But reverence is like that too, because without a sense of coming back to something, that we're a part of something greater, and that we're not just off on our own, that we always have to come back to the source, to each other. It's all about returning. And I would suggest that is a true compass for us. And I would say sovereignty is a result of all of this. And so balancing sovereignty with reverence, respecting the direction of all belief systems towards higher understanding, and agreeing to disagree where necessary. However, I've been using the phrase agree to disagree a lot, and I realized it might not quite be the most exciting term for us, because people don't like disagreeing. It's not so great to just say, okay, we can just disagree, because some people are just going to be off stewing in their corner. Well, we're never going to come on the same page. But there's a great quote that has been shared throughout the many years, the era of Christianity. It's a Latin quote. I don't know if I could pronounce it right. In necessaritas unitas, in dubes libertas, in omnibus caritas, which has been translated to in essentials unity, in non-essentials liberty, in all things charity. So the idea there has been that people can use this to have a shared belief systems in essentials unity. We find what we are totally unified on, but then what we're not unified on, in non-essentials liberty, you give people freedom, and in all things charity. So we create love is the basis, and we find a space for unity, which is what this council is about. We find a space where we can unite on key principles, and we make sure we understand how we need to allow for freedom in our belief systems at the same time. Now, I can imagine Christians taking offense to my use of that phrase, because some people would disagree on what's essential. Like some people would say, okay, Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. So therefore, Christianity is the way, the truth, and the life. But if you actually think about it, okay, what was Jesus representing? Jesus represents a life of love. If Jesus is representing the way, the truth, and the life, who among us could disagree with the way of Jesus as being the way, the truth, and the life, the way of the path of love? So I would say the essentials have to do with what Jesus was all about. Service to others, respect for all people, not saying it's just the Jews, but saying whoever else, the Gentiles, the Jews, everybody is in on this. Everybody has to be respected and brought in. And then also, I would suggest something else we can unify together on is we have to have respect for everyone, which means not seeing others as sheep or cattle or below us. I think that a lot of people who think that they have the right true religion in this day and age, some people at the top tend to think of others as cattle and not a part of this whole thing and not important. And I think that those of us who are forming these councils should have respect for everyone as a core part of our mission. And this is possible through love, and love is the foundation. So that was my statement. Does anyone else have anything to share on that?
In regards to your comment about like the sheep and stuff, there are some writers and people who say that we are all ascended masters, but not all have discovered that yet.
Yeah.
Still waiting to be uncovered.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot to be a human on this planet.
So I said a lot there.
Does Darlene have anything to add?
Does anyone want to add anything? What do you think, Darlene?
What's that?
Could you hear me what I was saying?
Yes. I'm picking up most of it, but I just do not want to disrupt you when I miss a word. So, Skype isn't probably the most ideal situation, but it works for me being in New Mexico right now. But I do believe I heard most of your conversation, and I have to say that your observations I must agree with, absolutely. I am not a Christian. I was not raised in any belief system, and as a result of the work, I do not aspire to belief systems because it limits me from receiving information for other people. But through the experiences I had with my work, I have to agree with you with the concept of grace, and I'm sorry, what was the word you were using? It wasn't grace.
Reverence?
Yes, thank you. No matter what someone's belief is, reverence is probably the key to appreciation of our lives, of our purpose for being here. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, I liked what you said about not looking down on others, because I think that's really old energy and how we categorize. And as challenging as that is to learn not to categorize, because we were taught to, the future lies in being in inclusiveness.
Right. We could stop filming. It would be an easier conversation.